My name is Lisa Wobbe-Veit. I'm a social worker, curriculum developer, and associate professor of practicum social work education. Closer to home, I'm a parent, a Parkland resident, and for the past 5.5 years, the MSD family liaison. My role really began at the day of the tragedy. My own son was on lockdown, and as an academic, I wanted to provide the numerous resources that are out there in regards to speaking to children and families about mass violence. I went home waiting for that call to pick up my son, and I started sending emails to the mayor, to my school board personnel, and to the principal of my children's schools. From that, I continued to volunteer over the next several months in facilitating conversations between the most impacted families and the district. As a constant individual and a face, a recognizable face, I became that individual that was consistent across all meetings. That led to my long-term role as a singular point of contact for the families who were most impacted, those who had loved ones murdered in the building and those who had injured survivors. My focus has continued to be on consistent communication, advocacy, and addressing their long-term needs for recovery.
Hi, I'm Michelle Kefford, and I'm the very proud principal at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. This is a role I have served in for the past almost 5 years now. I previously was a principal at a different location. After the tragedy in 2018, I was asked to assume leadership over Stoneman Douglas. That journey started in 2019, and I have been there ever since. I am a Parkland resident, as well as a parent of a student who graduated from Stoneman Douglas 2 years ago and one who is currently enrolled. I was asked to help lead the recovery efforts that were needed after the tragedy, and I'm glad to provide the support that I'm able to provide to the school and the community. Lisa was one of the first people I met when I was appointed. I had experience running a school. I had experience being a principal, and Lisa had experience being a mental health professional. She had a skill set that I did not possess, and I have a skill set she did not possess. So it was that collaboration and those joint efforts that really helped us to be effective in leading these recovery efforts. Lisa had never run a school. I had never been a mental health professional, nor had I ever worked through a traumatic event or leading anybody through recovery efforts resulting from a traumatic event. So our collaboration and our continual communication is really what helped us to be effective and helped us to ensure we were meeting the needs of all parties involved and everybody impacted by this horrific tragedy.
We really worked through trial and error, really understanding that each individual family and group would have a unique experience, would have a unique reaction. And the needs of families whose loved ones who were murdered would look very different from those injured survivors that were returning to school campus. So we really worked collaboratively to identify what could we do to remove the distress in that very moment, and how could we develop a list of options to help the individuals interact, communicate, be a part of the MSD and Parkland and Coral Springs communities, but also giving them the opportunity to identify how they would like to participate in that engagement.
And Lisa would think of things I wouldn't think of, and I would think of things Lisa wouldn't think of. So it was the two perspectives combined together, which really, really made this model and continues to make this model very effective. You know, our school shooting was different than a lot of school shootings that occur in the sense that our shooter remained alive after the horrific tragedy that we experienced. That meant that we had to endure several trials. We suffered through re-traumatization multiple times, through things that came on the news, through new events that were covered regarding the shooter and regarding the shooting. Because there was a trial involved, our crime scene, which happened to be one of our buildings on the MSD campus, remained standing and still remains standing today. That is a constant reminder of the horrific tragedy that occurred here. that we've had to continue to look at over the past almost 6 years.
Michelle talked about the trauma reminders that existed on campus and in our community. And we really had a very unique role of supporting families who had experienced the unimaginable. My focus was on the most impacted families, those whose loved ones who were murdered, those who injured survivors. So I had 33 families that I was really focused on creating a plan that would provide support, while Michelle had to work on supporting a school community, bringing back safety, bringing back a sense of joy into the educational environment. How could we develop a plan to work together to provide social worker and educator an opportunity for healing?
We also have several survivors who had family members who continued to be involved with the school in different capacities. So relying on Lisa for some strategies and suggestions in how to make sure that we are not missing anything, that we are meeting the needs of all of these people was critical in successfully leading those recovery efforts.
When you really look at how do students and families interact, those big days where you come in large groups, how do we make that comfortable for students who might have a reaction to being in crowds? How do they pick up their books, get their schedules? How do we help them be a part of the community while also giving them a protective environment and where they feel safe? Absolutely.
Lisa and I not only work together, but we've really become each other's support system. I think when you're dealing with any traumatic event, whether you're leading the recovery efforts or you're involved in the recovery efforts, there are different needs. And I think oftentimes the leaders forget that they need support as well. We often are so focused on assisting and supporting others that we put to the side our own needs. Lisa and I have really developed that reciprocal relationship wherein we check on one another. When something arises or something's in the news, we'll give each other a call, send each other a text. And we've really relied on one another to build each other up and to remind each other that, hey, I have to check on you. Hey, it's okay, you need support as well. And I think that's critical when you're leading a recovery effort or you've experienced a traumatic event. That mental health piece for all involved is so critical, and never lose sight of you as the leader, ensuring that you're checking in on yourself and your own emotions and feelings related to the situation. I do have to say, as an educational leader, I'm very grateful to the National Association of Secondary School Principals. They put together a group called the Principals Recovery Network, or PRN, as we refer to it. It's a group of educational leaders who have experienced tragedy through school shootings while they were in leadership or in leading recovery efforts related to a school shooting. We put together collectively a resource, which is called the Guide to Recovery. It's available on our website, and it's a phenomenal resource for anybody who finds themselves in a situation where there's a tragedy. It doesn't have to be a shooting. There are traumatic events that take place in every different business and every organization every single day. So it is an invaluable resource, and I encourage you to check it out. Download a copy. We're happy to provide a copy as well if you need a hard copy, but it really gives some great tips and some great suggestions in how to handle recovery efforts and things to think about that you may not have thought of.
I'm so fortunate to be a social worker and be surrounded by a community of social workers who really understands secondary traumatic stress and what the needs I might have are. I have been hopefully that support for Michelle, and I know I've had that support in return, not only from my community here, but also from the academic community, where research really highlights the need for how to support the helpers, because we have to continue to be present to do this work.
So the model that Lisa and I developed really has three fundamental concepts. The first involves communication. That communication has to be constant, has to be consistent, and it has to be uniform. So Lisa and I collaborate in every communication that is released to every person involved in our tragedy and in our recovery efforts. When Lisa's putting something out to the families, we always run through it together just to ensure there's a consistent message and ensure that we don't miss anything. When I'm putting anything out to our staff or our school community, I also reach out to Lisa and we make sure that communication is exactly as it should be, is sensitive, is timely, and contains the correct messaging. It's always critical as well to ensure that these messages go out at the same time. We don't want any group to get a message before another group, because we don't ever want to send a message that one group is more important than another group. We are all involved in this recovery effort, and we take great pride and sensitivity in ensuring that the needs of everybody, are consistently met, and everybody knows that they're valued and that their emotions are at the forefront of the work that we do.
It's really important as we're thinking about how we're communicating is we really start to look at the language that we use. Oftentimes the language that we use for mental health providers, for educators, might have an impact on families. Through time and having conversations, I'm very careful to look at everything through the mental health lens. The word trigger for a family member whose loved one was taken by a firearm might be very distressing. So I might use the words distress or activating. I never say loved ones who were lost. Those families' loved ones were murdered. When we really are looking at to safeguard our language, sometimes we are minimizing someone else's experience. And so it's really important to really think critically and carefully about how you communicate and the words that you use. Our model is firmly rooted in the principles of psychological first aid. How are we providing a compassionate and safe environment? Really looking at psychological first aid, it's an evidence-informed approach that is focused on supporting individuals in the aftermath of a tragedy. It's really focused on the short-term and long-term needs through the steps listen, protect, connect, model, and teach. When we work together, kind of looking at what do families need? How can we meet their needs right now? What is needed to reduce the distress that they might be feeling? That might be as simple as when they're participating, being the first person that they see as they come into the room, meeting them in the parking lot, ensuring their seating allows them easy access in and out. It allows them to make choices, giving a menu of options of how they would like to participate, how they want to receive their information. It's really on continually assessing and evaluating how can we provide what they need in the moment while also helping connect them to long-term resources and opportunities in the community for healing and wellness.
The third and final aspect of the model that we created really involves a situational and holistic approach. Every tragedy, every trauma event is very different. The needs are very different. The details are very different. And so it's about being flexible and sensitive to the specific situation that is in front of you. So it's making adaptations, making modifications where necessary. Lisa shared a little bit about making modifications to language and words that are used, making modifications to the interaction that people have in different venues, whether it be at the school, whether it be in the community. It's being sensitive to everybody's needs and knowing that everybody's needs are a little bit different. Although people experience the same tragedy, their recovery process and their recovery path is not the same as everyone else. So it's about being flexible and about taking the time to learn what the individual needs are and making sure we do everything we can to meet those needs.
I think we're really humbled and honored to be able to support families in this path.
And staff.
And the community, to be honest.
Absolutely.
As we work together, understanding that healing and recovery, there's no timeline. The work that we do now is just as important as in the work that we did in the early months after the tragedy. And there's a lot more work that continues to be needed as we support families through their journey.
Recovery is a long-term process, and it's about knowing how to work through that process and be on that journey and having the right people alongside of you while you are on that road, so that you can be as effective as possible. Lisa and I take this role very seriously, and we are committed to assisting not only those in this recovery journey, but we're here today because we're committed to helping others who might unfortunately find themselves in a situation that nobody wants to be a part of. We want to talk to you a little bit about how to modify or how to utilize what we developed to help you as you plan for, or God forbid, are engaged with a traumatic event. How you can make our model work for you. First and foremost, you have to assemble a team that consists of a mental health professional and a school or business administrator who possesses a deep understanding of the community's culture. Lisa and I both shared with you that we're Parkland residents. I taught at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School at the beginning of my career. I was a teacher here for 6 years. So I have a working knowledge of the community and of the school, and that was critical. Lisa came on board in this role first really as a parent volunteer, someone who had the experience and expertise in trauma-informed training, in mental health processes and wellness, and she just wanted to help. But she had a strong understanding of the community and was embedded and invested in the community. And that made for a great match for this work that needed to be done. Communication. We talked about the first tenet of our model to be effective communication. There needs to be a well-coordinated approach to communication that encompasses and involves all relevant parties. Victims' families, survivors, and any affected individual or stakeholder involved in the trauma event. You need to identify and address key communication and planning topics. These may include mental health resources, support for recovery, commemoration planning, responses to subsequent potential tragedies, victim and family support, planning for milestones such as victims' graduation dates, litigation, and responses to the media. You need to ensure that you're reviewing all of your messaging with a mental health lens and a mental health professional to identify potential words, phrases, content, or any topics that may be distressing to victims' families, injured survivors, or anyone in the community. You need to ensure that you tailor all communications accordingly. You also need to ensure that there is unified and consistent communication to all impacted groups.
The second step in utilizing our model is to really educate yourself and staff on the principles of psychological first aid. Psychological first aid is not just for mental health providers, it's for everyone in the organization and how they interact with one another. How can they help support each other as well as those that are most impacted? The third step is really looking at situational and holistic support. Having the administrator and mental health professional work together to ensure that all needs of everyone involved is met, acknowledging the need for adaptability and learning through experience, recognizing that no two tragedies are identical. You need to ensure that you have a support system in place as you provide assistance to others. We are available to provide guidance and support. Our email addresses are on the screen. This work is personal. We have had the opportunity and have been honored to walk a path that no person would want to be on. Families didn't choose this. The school community didn't choose this. We have learned together. I have learned from the families that I've worked with, and they have made a tremendous impact on my life and my career. We want to be a part of some solutions and moving forward. And how can our story, how can what we have done here maybe impact someone for the future?
Lisa and I have learned from one another through this experience, and we're better people and professionals as a result of the work that we've done. So our goal now is to help others who may unfortunately find themselves in a situation nobody wants to be in. So we're grateful for the opportunity to share our experiences, to share the model that we've developed with you, and we encourage you to reach out should you need our assistance or simply just want more information. Lisa and I want to thank you for taking the time out to join us and to hear about our road to recovery and the leadership we've provided to help others to heal.